Recording now. Okay, and I am going to, sorry, I'm just getting used to this system myself. Make Anna Peloton the presenter. And so she can start sharing her screen. Anna is the Director of School and Community Partnerships at College of Marin. And we were referred to her by Jamie Nash at Mount Tamalpais Adult School. And Jamie told me that Anna is a fabulous collaborator with her and that they've been working very well together and that Anna will be a great webinar presenter and give us a lot of information about what we need to know to move our students from adult education to the colleges. With Anna is Kathy Takamoto, who is the Regional Outreach Coordinator for the Adult Ed Block Grant in their region, and Mala Allen, who is a math instructor and coordinator for the Statway Math Pathways and the Summer Bridge program. So the three of them will be presenting together, and I'm going to turn it over right now to Anna.
Well, thank you so much, Marion, for organizing this webinar, and Jennifer for your tech support. And I'm going to talk with Jamie Nash about managing expectations about these kinds of webinars. But and happy Friday to all of you who are joining us, and thank you for taking the time so that we can all learn more from each other about how to best serve our students, our collective students. I'm going to start with a little bit of full disclosure. I'm going to apologize in advance that the slides are pretty heavy text, and normally we try to include more visuals, but we really opted for more content since we really wanted to get to the nuts and bolts of some of the process as well as programs, and that way to really help students in a very concrete way. So let's get started. So Community College 101, transitioning to post-secondary education. And really starting from the vantage point of building a strong partnership between an adult school and community college. And we're really hoping that as we go through these slides that we'll have lots of opportunity to hear from you about the kind of partnerships that you have created. This photo is actually taken from our local Tamalpais Adult School, their graduation from a couple years ago. And so the gal in the middle is Jamie Nash, who's their wonderful counselor there, and to her right is one of their graduates. So I just want to give a short history. So the partnership that exists between College of Marin and Tamalpais Adult School really comes from a couple of years of Jamie and I working together to provide a smooth transition for her students. It started with our going to their evening classes and meeting with their students and talking about programs, building a level of trust and communication with them. And with that came an open door policy so that I could ask questions of Jamie and she could do the same and come back and ask about community college programs and services. And we found that over the years that the key areas of the partnership was to help Jamie understand what exactly is available at the community college, where to go to help, who to ask for help, how to help students navigate the process. I think that we all are aware that process can very often be a barrier, and so it means that it's that much more important for us to help demystify and decode the language in the process, explaining certain terminology that we use every day, and yet it may not be something easily understood by outside people. Words like syllabus and matriculation. And so what that meant was establishing a strong communication pipeline to keep everybody updated on important information. And we all know that strong partnerships benefit our students. In the last several years, community colleges have benefited from some state funding under the Student Success Act. The good news is that we have funding to build out our support services, and we also have accountability. So there's the carrot and the stick. And so when Jamie and I meet, we talk about the components to student success, which start with the online application through CCC Apply, and that should sound familiar to everybody. The importance of placement testing, and in fact, the preparation for the placement test. The importance of students meeting with counselors to establish an ed plan, an education plan, and to set some goals. And also to attend an orientation so that they're aware of the programs and services that are available to them. And those key steps will qualify students for priority registration because we provide the who, what, where, and why. And we need to also explain to students why priority registration is important. It means that they stand at the front of the line and have a greater chance of getting the classes that they need to navigate through the system as efficiently as possible. We actually here are part of a regional adult ed block grant. Kathy's going to talk about that a little bit later. But we want to showcase some of the work that's going on there, some of the programs we're developing to support our adult learners. And then a little later, Mala Allen, as Marion mentioned, who's our math specialist, is going to talk about some math programs that are also being developed to support students. And so College of Marin and TAM Adult School, we've co-presented at a number of conferences, and it just reinforces the kind of relationship that we have and the strong communication. And then we include TAM Adult School in our annual counselors and administrators meetings that are hosted by our president and then also by our senior vice president. So let's get back to the notion of demystifying the value-added programs and resources. Some of you may have offices that are called admissions, and we happen to have what we call the Enrollment Services Office, where we've combined our admissions and financial aid staff, since we found that the vast majority of students that had a question about their transcript or about their grades or about their status very often had a question related to financial aid. You would be not surprised to know that most community colleges have 60 to 70% of its students who qualify for some level of financial aid. So by combining those offices, we can eliminate another line for students to stand in, but all community colleges may handle that differently. So you might hear bursar's office or cashier's office in addition to admissions and financial aid. Some community colleges have counselors, others call them advisors, but they are the ones that are providing the academic information and planning support for students and are really crucial to help the student to move through the system efficiently, to be taking courses that align to their program goals, so they're not taking courses that will either not count toward a certificate or not count toward transfer. And so we emphasize the importance of their meeting with counselors on a regular basis, and particularly if they change their educational. And we wanted to touch on some very special programs and support services that we know are really important to student success. Many of you, I'm sure, have heard the phrase learning communities. A lot of the K-12 systems are building either learning communities or learning academies. And so we're going to talk a little bit about some of the programs that we have here. Some examples are the Puente program, the First Experience, Emoja, EOPS, which stands for Extended Opportunity Program and Services, our library, student accessibility, veterans, scholarships, financial aid, and then our associated students of College of Marin. Those are just some examples, and we're going to go a little bit deeper into some of those areas. So the definition of a learning community, it's a group of students who share common academic goals and attitudes, who meet regularly to collaborate on classwork, and such communities have become the template for a cohort-based interdisciplinary approach to higher education. So I'm smiling as I'm reading those words because I realize that it sounds like a lot of education-ese, and basically it is a blended experience for students where one content area will complement the others. So for example, for the first year experience, and that's often called FYE, that it's a learning community for our first year students who are generally first generation, so the first in their family to attend college. And the goal is obviously success in college, and so within the counseling portion of that learning community, there are strategies in how to be successful that include time management and organization and goal setting. And they talk about those strategies in very concrete ways and give examples of why knowing what the resources are, planning your schedule to allow time for homework and commuting and family and work and everything else is really, really important. And FYE is a year-long community, so that these students are taking an English and a counseling course together, and so they build community over the course of the year. And so very often an English assignment, if they're going to write a paper, it will very often be on a topic that they've discussed within the counseling class. So they're leveraging what they learn in one class to the other, and then that also builds the relationship and the sense of family for them, family and community. And with that also comes accountability. You know, we all know that as students get to know each other and make those kinds of connections, you know, you'll hear them say to each other, gee, we missed you last week. You know, you missed class on Wednesday, and so this is what we covered, and here's the homework. And so that kind of accountability, that kind of responsibility, that enhances their learning experience as well. And I should mention also, just in terms of placement, that FYE classes are generally those students who, on their placement tests, who are placing below college level. So they have some additional academic support in terms of being encouraged to go to tutoring and those kinds of things, and also to access office hours, which are special time periods that faculty set aside to meet with students who have questions. Most of those learning community classes are anywhere from 20 to, I would say 20 to 30, depending upon the specific class. I know that, see, I think on the next slide, I was going to talk about the Puente and Emoja programs. Our Puente program has been around longer, and so those classes are between 30 and 35. We have one section. We would love to have two sections of the Puente program. So that's a staffing issue that we're hoping to address. But both our Puente and Emotion programs had their roots in developing a learning community for, in the case of the Puente program, for our Hispanic students, and the Emoja program has its roots in developing support services for our African American students. I'll mention that both of our programs are highly diverse, and so within our Puente classrooms we have students of all ethnicities, which actually is part of the strength of the program. But the reading material, the literature, and a lot of the content is culturally relevant to the Hispanic community, as well as Emoja with the material being relevant to the African American community. But once again, they're blended counseling and an English class. Each program have mentors, and then the writing is related to culturally relevant literature. Both of these programs also are intended to help students to transfer, and the Puente program we have seen over the years we've run that program has had very high success in their students actually transferring onto the four-year system. And we do follow them once they transfer, and we know that there's also very good success in their completing their bachelor's degrees. So that sense of community, many of our students who transfer will report when they go to the 4 years that they meet up with other Puente students from other community colleges, and so that identity stays with them, and so it has a really important sustaining quality. I think I mentioned that the special writing that is part of the class will usually focus on culturally relevant literature. And that cohort model with a strong sense of identity community is what really sustains, I think, the learning and the sense of community that the students have. And these learning communities are those classes are taught here on the College of Marin campus. EOPS, once again, Extended Opportunity Program Services. Yes?
I'm going to just interrupt you for a second with a couple of questions. One is, oh, you answered that, are they on the campus? And I think you alluded to, does every college have these programs, Puente and Umoja? Or
I don't think everyone does, and we've just added Umoja in the last year.
I see. So it's in process.
But they're nationally recognized models that have a lot of research behind them. And I believe that our Emoja program took 5 or 6 years to develop and to really to put the team together. So it's a thoughtful and deliberate process that takes some time.
Okay, thank you. And Daryl's asking, are there any outreach type programs that extend to adult schools, like kind of a bridge between community college and adult ed?
Outreach programs in the sense of going, so where we would go to the adult school
Probably
to talk
going
about
to the
these?
adult school, yeah.
Yeah. I mentioned that, we spend a lot of time over at the TAM Adult School, for example, as well as with neighboring San Rafael. They just restarted their adult program, and then Novato, also another district here in our community, has an adult school. So we actually go out and visit with their students to talk to them about college programs. We invite them. We very often have tours where they'll come and visit the campus. And so part of that is just to familiarize the students with our programs and services, and that way to smooth the transition.
Thanks.
Sure. So EOPS is technically a student service, but we really view that as a learning community because it provides, they have their own embedded EOPS counselors who work with this special population. Students qualify for EOPS based on the governor's fee waiver. So if they qualify for the BOG or the governor's fee waiver, they pretty much automatically get a letter of invitation to join the EOPS program. And so with that program, they are entitled to an embedded counselor. There is priority registration. So once again, that means that they are at the front of the line in being able to register for classes, which is really key if you're trying to line up the classes you need to move through as efficiently as possible. They hold special workshops for their students in terms of a really wonderful orientation, and they are entitled to individual tutoring as well as a book grant. And I think that each community college will manage their own EOPS budget a little bit differently, but these are just examples of some of the benefits that we offer our students here at the College of Marin. And so the other list of eligible students include foster and former foster youth, men of purpose, so African American and Latino males, DREAMAC students, and so that's the AB 540. We'll talk about that in just 1 minute. And once again, one of the qualifiers is that the students would qualify for the governor's fee waiver. I should mention also that our EOPS office happens to be housed right next to, or actually in the same room as, our tutoring center. That's not by accident. That obviously is a very important student service, and so housing the EOPS office there, it really kind of emphasizes the importance of accessing tutoring, and then also because of the special arrangement that EOPS students have where they can actually request individual tutoring in different subjects. Financial aid is a huge it's a huge factor in student enrollment, in retention and persistence, completion and success. We all know that we can have the best programs in the world, but if students can't afford them, then that very often stops them somewhere in the process. And so the more that we are familiar with and aware of the different forms of financial assistance, the better we can help our students. The FAFSA, which is free application for federal student aid, is the big application that basically for students who apply, it will qualify them potentially for California state aid as well as federal aid. There is a change in the FAFSA deadline and timeline this year. They're actually releasing the FAFSA on October 1st rather than January 1st. And then the priority deadline will remain March 2nd. The importance of the early release means that students have a longer time to complete the FAFSA. It requires an online tax return transcript. There's a lot of information on it. It can be an overwhelming process for a lot of students, and so this way it gives them more time to fill that out and hopefully go find support at the local college for that, and I'll mention that in a minute. One of the federal grants, actually the biggest federal grant, is the Pell Grant. That's federal aid for students that have significant financial need, and those grants range anywhere from $584 to $5,814, so $5,814. And it is based on income standards and the size of the family. I should point out that the federal aid, the Pell Grant in particular, has a maximum of 6 years of attendance. So this is relatively new, and what that means is that a student who has attended either 12 semesters or 6 years, that will be the maximum length that they will qualify for the Pell. So this really speaks to a student moving through the system as efficiently as possible and taking the courses to get either them to the workforce or to transfer. Pell Grant is a qualifier for federal work study. So students who do qualify for the Pell Grant can also access work study funds, which means that they can work on campus. We, in fact, in our office, employ 11 student ambassadors, and half of them receive federal work study, which means that they can work right here on campus and make anywhere from $12 to $15 an hour. And so we try to make that work opportunity not only financially an advantage, but also we try to work in some workability skills into that as well. The California State federal financial aid includes the Board of Governors, and so we call that the BOG fee waiver or Governor's fee waiver, and that covers the $46 per unit or the tuition that the students owe. And so that California aid, once again, is really just to cover tuition. The Pell Grant, as I mentioned, so if they qualify for the Pell Grant, that money can be used for any educational expenses beyond tuition. So very often helps them with books and with laptops and with other related expenses. There's also the Cal Grant, and that, once again, it's California aid, and it ranges anywhere from $530 to $1,473. And there are different forms of Cal Grant. One is based entirely upon need. One is based on merit, and therefore grade point average. And then there is a third version that is for vocational programs. And then we have College of Marin specific scholarships, as well as other related community-based organizations that provide scholarships on our website. And so generally in June or July, we'll send out an email to all students and alert them of scholarship opportunities, and so they can apply. We've actually gone to a one-form online application, and that way we're trying to get as much of that supplementary aid to students so that they can afford to go to college. So that's kind of a combination of federal, state, as well as some private funding. And let's see, I'm just seeing on the screen, are BOG and Cal Grants based on the FAFSA, or are they different applications? So the FAFSA, if a student fills out the FAFSA, it will qualify them for the Governor's fee waiver and Cal Grants. We do have some students who just apply for the Governor's fee waiver just for the tuition alone, and so that will depend upon the student's interest and also need. I want to touch a little bit on the California DREAM Act. So Assembly Bill 540, which was passed 4 or 5 years ago, allows undocumented students or those students without a Social Security number to enroll in California community colleges and pay the in-state resident tuition. So the $46 a unit versus the international fee. It's a very significant savings for them. And the requirements are that they attend 3 years in a California school. There have been some changes as to which years those must be. Originally it was intended as 3 years of high school, and now due to a revision within the legislation, it's 3 years within the California system, recognizing that some of these students might have been here for a year in middle school and then 2 years in high school, or perhaps 1 year in elementary and 1 year in middle and one year in high school. So it's a combination of 3 years in a California high school and a high school diploma or a GED. So the qualifying factor is beyond the 3 years within the California school system, the student must have that high school diploma and GED then to qualify for the in-state or the resident tuition. and they do that by submitting an AB 540 affidavit, which basically designates the dates, and the student certifies that the length of study within California, as indicated, is true, and there's also a commitment on the form that they will apply for citizenship. One of the best nonprofits that has the most information on AB 540 and the DREAM Act in general, as well as immigration reform, is Educators for Fair Consideration. Their website is e4fc.org. They'll come to your school and do an overview and a workshop for any interested students, as well as they're just a fantastic resource. They've got a great website, and as I mentioned, they've come here actually to College of Marin several times to update us on the legislation, as well as other scholarships that are available.
And let me just back up for a second. Michelle is asking about the Pell Grant. Is that just for community college, or if they transfer to a four-year university?
It can be for the transfer. In fact, many of our students defer the Pell because once they transfer, then the tuition bumps up, obviously. So they're saving the Pell for where the heavy expenses are. But
Right.
But it can be used for community college. Good question.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so kind of back to some student services that are really important for students. So CalWORKS and CARE stands for Cooperative Agency.
Just one, sorry, one more question about the Dreamers. Does adult education count towards the 3 years?
This is a great question, and I unfortunately don't have a comprehensive answer for this. My recommendation is that teachers in the adult ed programs talk with both the local high schools as well as the community college to see what agreement might be in place. I think the agreements vary across the continuum, and I'll give an example. There are some high schools and in a district where there is an adult ed program, and there may be a non-graduating senior. So the example would be someone who moves from El Salvador in his junior year, and so completes 2 years in the high school, but it does not have adequate credits to graduate from the high school, and then ages out at either 18 or 19. So at that point, that student could attend the adult school, and in some cases, the adult school will allow the student to receive his diploma from the high school. And so the 2 years at the high school and then 1 year at the adult school to complete the credits add up to 3, and therefore that student would qualify for AB 540. That's one example. There are other examples and different variations, but I would suggest that folks talk with their local K-12 or local high school districts as well as their community colleges to see what's in place, because it does vary from region to region.
So Lynette is mentioning an undocumented student she has who got her GED through adult education and is not eligible for the DREAM Act because of age, so she's paying quite a bit for the international student tuition. I don't know.
And how many, I'm wondering how many years she studied in the adult school. 3 years. Huh.
But she's 39, so don't you have to be in a certain age range?
No, we've looked at the legislation and actually have looked to see whether there's an age stipulation, and as far as we can tell, there isn't.
Oh, okay, good. Thank you.
So I think that's one, I think and there may be other nuances to the situation, but I would suggest contacting Educators for Fair Consideration. They actually have an FAQ, and then they have a contact site on their website, and ask that question with all the specifics in terms of time and also degree, just to get more information.
Thanks.
Sure. Okay, so CalWorks and CARE, once again, that's the Cooperative Agency's Resource for Education. And these are special services housed within our EOPS office for students who are single parents, head of a household. They are receiving CalWorks or TANF support. They very often qualify for federal work study. We actually have 2 student ambassadors who are in this category. And so they have additional funding and support services from not only us, but from Marin County. And so, you know, I think that it's really addressing the needs of the single parent, very often with young children. I know that our child care centers has a sliding scale for children of our students as well as our staff, and so many of those students will access our child care center as another support service for them. And so I'd love to hear from the attendees, if just kind of their general impressions of which services would be of greatest value to your students. What are the services that you find that they might be accessing? And just general questions about any of the programs or other programs that you might have heard about that you might have questions about. And we'll give you time to type into the chat box.
Looks pretty quiet out there. Are you typing, or did you ask all your questions as we went along?
Let's see. For the Cal Grant, do my students need to do anything additional other than doing their FAFSA and getting the Cal Grant? For the Cal Grant. Right. So the Cal Grant is part of the FAFSA. And so generally our students will go into their student portal, and there's a student tab and there's a financial aid tab. And under the financial aid tab, they would see the notices that pretty much stipulate what they are eligible for. And that's the way that we relay that information with them. So and processing time, I'm sure, varies, you know, institution to institution, but generally once they've submitted the FAFSA, it flows through the federal system and then it comes down through us. There's a 7-digit school number, so each of us has one of those. And then it's really up to our financial aid specialist to review. Some applications require some level of verification, and so that might be for the male students selective service registration. They'll ask for proof that they have actually registered for that. There might be a question for their confirming the number of siblings in the family, and so that can delay the FAFSA. I just say that because sometimes the review process takes a little bit longer than a couple of weeks. And I'm seeing one that new to these programs, which ones are most relevant for ESL students who plan to attend community college? Oh, well, let's see. Well, the ESL students, so that once again would be if they are attending the adult school for 3 years or more and then actually complete with either the high school equivalency or the GED, that under the AB 540 provision should qualify for some of the California aid. So we have the California DREAM Act here in the state, but we do not yet have a federal or national DREAM Act. So that's the reason why within California we are able to provide that in-state resident tuition as well as the governor's fee waiver and Cal Grant. So those would be the qualifiers for those ESL students who do not have a Social Security number.
Anna, I'm going to back up to Karma's question about disability, learning disability testing. If the colleges offer that, and if the adult schools can avail themselves of that in some way.
Right,
If
and
you
so
know.
I guess I would have two answers. One, if the student already has some sort of a educational plan, an individual educational plan, we will refer those students directly to our Student Accessibility Services office so that they can meet with a counselor who can review whatever accommodations might be necessary and to evaluate what we can provide. And so that would be the first step. In terms of an assessment, we do some assessments through our Student Accessibility Office. And so the recommendation would be for those students to contact the specific office at their community college and arrange for that assessment.
Thanks. And Odetta's asking what kind of identification would an undocumented student need for AB 540? They had a student who said he couldn't get it due to an issue of ID.
Huh. So that might be that some sort of a photo ID. Well, obviously, if there's a driver's license, I know that the DMV also issues photo IDs separate from the driver's license.
Okay, and Flavia's asking, does volunteering help students get grants or scholarships?
Volunteering, oh, in general?
Yeah, general volunteer work.
Yeah, probably not the California state grants, but certainly for certain kinds of scholarships. And there are lots of wonderful scholarship websites. Many of the scholarships are very specific about someone interested in nursing who might be second generation of a particular ethnicity. It could be engineering, someone who lives in a particular town, or someone who's demonstrated interest in a particular field. So I would imagine that there are certain scholarships that would value that. And so it's a question of doing the research. But it's a worthwhile use of time, because if you can find the right scholarship, then the return on the investment is a good one.
Thank you. And Lucia's talking about the relationship of her organization, Proteus, with their college that they're near, College of the Sequoias, and how they're transferring students and keeping track of them. And
that's an important point too, is to be able to have some data sharing so that the adult school has some notion of what happens to their students when they enter. And then from the community college standpoint, you know, we're really interested in where our students come from and how they do once they're here. So developing some sort of a shared data agreement is a really good practice.
Thanks. And John, I think we addressed your question. Monica's asking, does the Cal Grant verification process differ for adult ed students from that of high school students?
No, no. Verification is verification.
Pam and Gina have a counselor on site referring students to help them apply for aid. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I should mention also that we run, in partnership with our local financial aid scholarship nonprofit, which is 10,000 Degrees, we actually run Train the Trainers workshops for FAFSA. We have one coming up on September 30th, and anyone who's from the North Bay region, you're very welcome to attend. It's an all-day workshop where we're literally going to go line by line through FAFSA so that all of us are familiar with the nuances of the application. And the more people, quite frankly, on the student services floor here at the College of Marin who can help students with that application, the better. And so I would encourage that either through CSAC, which is the Aid Commission, the State Aid Commission, or through your local community college, if they offer such a training, I would really recommend you know, everybody to take the time to learn more about the FAFSA and about that system, because it's so important to our students. I'll admit that FAFSA is not my strong point, and so I'm really looking forward to this training because I think that we'll just be able to serve our students better.
Thank you. And Michelle's asking, who can we contact for information about the Puente version for adult education?
Let's see. So I don't know that there's a Puente version for adult education, but you know what? If you email outreach@marin.edu, that will come to me, and then I'll ask our Puente counselor for more information about that, and I'll get back to you on it. And if any of you are anywhere near the North Bay who might be interested in attending that September 30th FAFSA training, same thing, outreach@marin.edu. If you'd like to attend, just let me know. We'd love to have you.
So I'll just mention all of you should have received a copy of the handout this morning in your email. And if you didn't, you can just email one of us and we will send it to you.
Great. You know, I just want to do a little time check so that we have at least a little bit of time for Kathy to talk about some of the block grant work, because I know a lot of you are involved with your own regional consortiums, and also for Mala to touch on the math piece. So
that's fine. So let's go ahead and then we can come back to questions at the end if we have time. Thank you.
Fantastic. So I'm going to turn it over to Kathy, and thanks so much for being here.
Hi everyone, I'm Kathy Takamoto, and I'm the Program Outreach and Support Coordinator for the Marin County Adult Education Block Grant Consortium. Marin County is small, so we only have 5 members in our consortium, but there are 71 consortiums throughout the state that were established under AB 104. And many of you might already be familiar, but it was legislated who can be a member of the consortium, and the work that we do was also legislated. So on this first slide, these are the areas that the consortium is concentrating on. That's what their funding is for, and it's to serve students who are 18 years and older. All right, so in each county or in each consortium, they receive the funding now directly from the state. The consortium members now vote on how the funds will be used within their consortium. All right, so it's a way to hopefully find other people that are participating in adult education and give them a method so that if they have a program which is serving in one of these areas, they can come to their local consortium and talk to them about perhaps getting funding for their program. All right. And then I just wanted to spend a few minutes talking about a couple of the programs that we started here in Marin County. And many programs just take a lot of time to develop when you're trying to get your arms around the many different partners that might be interested. And so kind of like our first pass was to take a look at some of the programs that might already be in place that the consortium could just help recruit more students, or with a little bit of money provide new opportunities for students in a short amount of time. And so one of the first programs that we ran was this North Bay Trades Introduction Program. This is a program that the community college, the Workforce Development Board, and trades here, we worked together for like a year and a half to try and plan this. And the actual local trades council went out. They actually got the grant, which was through Proposition 39, which was energy efficiency money in the state, but they set aside some of the money for training. And so the North Bay Trade Council here, they submitted a grant application, and they were awarded the funds. So what they decided to do is, like in many other kind of trades or industrial-based vocations, many young people don't know about these trades anymore because they're not taught any longer in high schools. And they're worried about people taking their place because they're aging and they want to retire, and they're very frustrated at various ways trying to find students. So this is something that they wanted to try. They tried it first here in Marin County, and they are teaching a curriculum that was written by a trade group out of, I believe, Minnesota. And there are other groups throughout the country that are using the same model. So it's called the multi-craft curriculum. They call it MC3 for short. And it's 120 hours long. And the tradespeople found that many people interested in becoming an apprentice could not pass the required math examination. Almost every trade will offer some type of psychological assessment that you must go through along with a math test. And they were finding so many people could not pass the math test. So the focus, the largest focus in this curriculum is that out of the 120 hours, 40 hours are spent on math. And they're prepping them with trade-related math in addition to just algebra. And so they, in our area, they put out an announcement for this program. They had 47 people call in saying that they were interested. They had 27 actually show up at the required orientation meeting where they show them week by week what they would be learning. 25 people actually applied for a seat in the class, and they ended up starting with, I believe it was 20 students. And then 4 students actually dropped out at the very beginning because they actually found work through these teachers that are tradesmen, because that was kind of their top priority at that time in their life, is needing to work. And so they were able to find jobs. The other 16 completed the full 120 hours. And out of those 16 students, 4 were actually accepted into trade programs, trade apprenticeship programs, by the time the North Bay TIP program ended. And so those 4, they were able to pass the psychological assessment, they were able to do the application, they all passed the math test. And so out of the remaining students, 10 have applied for other trade apprentice programs, and you kind of, some of them you have to like kind of wait until there's a time of year where they actually sit down and look at the application. So we're hoping for more success from those students. In a similar manner, there's a program at our local YWCA for older women trying to re-enter the workforce. And it's kind of an interesting combination of some women that really don't have many skills at all, and some of the other clients are college graduates. The one thing they seem to have in common is that many of them don't have the electronic office skills needed in order to apply for like an admin assistant or a secretarial or even a clerk type of job. So Anna and I, we actually had a focus group meeting with some of their clients, then we had a planning session with the YWCA, and then we came up with this idea of telling them more about a certificate called the Business Office Worker, which is offered at the College of Marin. And so the YWCA, they did a lot of direct calling to their clients, and we had 15 women show up. And one of the concerns that they brought up through the focus group is some of them, especially the ones that had never been to college, were really scared about the whole college experience. So when we had this session, we brought in one of the faculty members so that they could meet a college faculty member, and he explained the word processing course that he taught. He explained his method of teaching. He explained the labs that are available to the students and that they need to use them just to get them more comfortable with this idea of taking a college class. And so out of that, we ended up having 6 women that applied for both. They're in class, taking classes this fall at the College of Marin, and they all decided to kind of dive in with their eyes wide open, and they're taking both a word processing class and the Excel class at the college. I'm sorry? And then the other thing that the College of Marin can offer is for the students that pass those classes, if they want to pay an additional fee, the college is certified to give the Microsoft Office certification exams in word processing and Excel. So that's another thing that we're encouraging the students to do if they feel comfortable at the end of the course to take that, because that's another nice thing they can put on their resume. For some of the students, you know, cost is still a concern, and so we kind of went through. We had a lot of student ambassadors to help us, help the ladies register help them fill out the waiver forms, and so hopefully some of them are getting some financial aid. The book used in the working class is almost a $100 book, and so the YWCA went out to some of their donors, and they found 6 donors that were willing to buy the books for these students. So we're hoping that that'll boost the confidence of these ladies and get them jobs. And then the last program that we just finished up here is in Novato, California. There's an agency called Homeward Bound, which offers homeless housing and transitional housing. At their transitional housing site, they built themselves a commercial kitchen, and they have been training their own residents there in an 8-week course, cooking academy. And so we, the College of Marin, provided funding to add in some additional students for only 4 weeks. And during these 4 weeks, they're earning 2 valuable certificates if you actually want to work in the food handling industry, the food handling certificate and the Serve Safe certificate. So we had 4 College of Marin students start this abbreviated course, 3 finished. I'm glad to report 1 already has a job. He started working the week after he finished and got his certificate. So it's something that we're going to try again. And just in, in summary, in working with older students, we're looking to coordinate these transitions for them, find entry-level jobs, but hopefully giving them a little bit of skill so that they can get higher-paying jobs as they work towards completing their education. Thank you. And now I'll turn it over to Mala.
Thanks so much, Kathy.
Hi, this is Mala. I'm talking about the new program that is being proposed by College of Marin. It's the Math Pathways Foundation program, and the 2 main purposes are to support streamlining a student's progress in their academic or career program's goals, and facilitating the transition to college in regards to satisfying the developmental math requirements. So in general, it's a program to be designed to support the math needs in the community, basically. The idea is to modularize our math content, the developmental math content, and contextualize it. Modularizing it is taking the pre-algebra and the algebra content and creating, say, 4 or 6-week modules, so that if a student has just the time to complete 4 weeks of work before other things happen and then they have to drop, which happens frequently with our students, then they've completed that module and they don't have to keep going back to the starting point again. They can pick up where they left off. The other thing is the contextualizing part of it is to include relevant real-world application in the curriculum so that students are learning the math in context of their academic and career goals. This is to, again, to streamline their progress through the curriculum, and the acceleration part of it. So this is an accelerated model. The courses that are being used to modularize the curriculum is from the Carnegie for the Carnegie Pathways courses for the advancement of teaching, and these courses, the curriculum, are contextualized. And so we're looking for more contextualization in terms of what the community needs are to incorporate in these modules. The acceleration is, well, due to the modularization so that students don't have to repeat it, and also removing the redundancy in the algebra content sequence. There is a lot of repeat in materials in both courses, and so we're removing those. So, and the modularization again is to accommodate students' schedules things that happen, and also for contextualizing it particular to particular pathways, structures, pathways that will be created. So that's it, basically.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mala. Well, great. So, Marian, I know that you need to provide a link for your survey. You know, I'll just wrap up by saying that you know, it's important to keep track of students heading toward the community college and where they go, and having that communication system. And we so appreciate the work that goes on in the adult school, and we love serving your students when they head our way. So, and we also recognize the importance of the high touch, the hands-on support that we provide these students to help them succeed. And we're always embracing a continuous improvement cycle. So we'd love to hear from you if you have questions or comments or suggestions. We have our contact information on the next page for Kathy and Mala and myself, and then there's some websites and also a link to Jamie Nash, who is our partner over at TAM Adult School. So we hope that this has been helpful, and we thank you so much for participating in this webinar.
And thank all of you also, Anna, Kathy, and Mala. It was great to have you. As you can see, we have a lot of questions about what's going on over there in the community colleges, and this gave people an opportunity to hear some of the great things you're doing and to ask questions about how we can help our students access those services. So thank you so much, and thank all of you for attending. We used to have in Adobe Connect, we had a way to give applause, but I don't think we have that in GoToMeeting. So thank you guys for all your comments that you're putting in there now, and have a good weekend.